Hello. Before we start today's episode, I need to make a small announcement. This week, you will hear mention of the Student Assistance Center here at the University of Illinois. After the conversation was recorded, the Student Assistance Center was renamed the Connie Frank Care Center. The services are the same, it's just the name has changed. So when you hear Student Assistance Center, that now refers to the Connie Frank Care Center. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Good morning, Illini. I'm Matt Schrock, your host here with Healthy Illini Podcast. I'm glad you're back with us. Today we're talking about an office on campus that many have heard of and some have interacted with, but they may not really have, a lot of people may not have a deep knowledge of what's there and what they bring. So we're going to talk about a few aspects of it, and we're talking about the Office of Dean of Students here today at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. And I'm joined today by Anne-Marie Morgan. She is the Associate Dean of Students and also the Director of the Student Assistance Center, which we're going to talk more about in the program. But Anne-Marie, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So as I said, I think most students and parents, if you ask them, they would say, oh, sure, I've heard of, if you say, have you heard of the Office of Dean of Students? They would say, oh, yeah, that's something I've heard of. And yeah, I'm kind of familiar. But if I pressed them and said, okay, what does that office do? Or can you expand upon what that office is? They'd give me that blank stare and kind of, that nervous look of, I really have no idea. Because we've heard the term Dean of Students, but not very many people can really quantify what that is. So before we get into a couple specific areas that I want to address today, can you just kind of give us a quick overview of what the Office of Dean of Students is?
Absolutely. And I imagine that some of that blank stare might go to some echoes back to high school and Dean of Students, yikes, that means I've gotten myself into some trouble. So we get a lot of that, and we need to kind of fight against that sort of reputation, if you will. But the Office of the Dean of Students does kind of encompass a couple of different units. The Student Assistance Center, which is my unit, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about more about here shortly. Student Legal Services, the Office for Student Conflict Resolution, and the Office for Off-Campus and Community Living, And so what I would say is that what each of those units have in common, what kind of binds us together, is the fact that we all help students as they're managing unexpected circumstances that arise, whether that's a landlord complaint that I wasn't expecting and I don't know how to handle, whether that's maybe I did make some bad decisions and now I'm being called to account for them through the Office for Student Conflict Resolution. Or maybe it's this traffic ticket that I got and I really, want to fight it and I don't know how and I need some legal advice. And so I go to the Student Legal Services office to meet with one of our attorneys, which, by the way, students, your fees pay for their salaries so you can get free legal advice. But those are the four units that fall within the Office for the Dean of Students. And again, what unites us is our commitment to helping students manage the unexpected.
And I think that's one thing I was going to say is that it's important to verbalize that your office is not a bunch of people who are mean waiting to punish students, who enjoy punishing students. Because when we think of like that Dean of Students high school idea and that discipline, you often have this idea of somebody sitting on like a throne with a big hammer waiting to use it, just can't wait to use it. And that's not at all what your office is. It's actually complete opposite, that you have a bunch of staff that want to help and are not looking to, hammer students down when they have issues, but it's like, hey, let's figure this out together.
Absolutely. And all of us, in our heart of hearts, we are educators. And even in those unexpected, unpleasant things that arise during a college career, there are lessons to be learned. And we are there to help students kind of learn the lesson, if you will, and learn how to manage similar kinds of situations down the line. So how do you utilize your resources? What are some things that you should know? How can you manage these kinds of things in your future? So at our hearts, we're all educators.
And that really leads in directly to the first particular that I want to talk about with Dean of Students, which is your office, which is the Student Assistance Center. I mean, it's in your name. That's what you're there for.
Yep.
You're there to help. And so just share, what is Student Assistance Center and what ways do you interact with students?
For sure. So what I would say, in sort of my little spiel that I like to give folks when they ask about the Student Assistance Center, is we know the place is huge. We know that it can be challenging to navigate. And we're here to help students do that. that's sort of number one, the first lane we operate in. I like to tell people I've worked at a total of 1, 2, 3. This is the fourth university that I've worked at as a professional staff person, and it took me a year or two to figure this place out. So it can be challenging. So that's number one. The second kind of lane that we operate in is that students who are having any kind of a struggle, writ large or small, and they don't know how to work through it, we're the office for you. We talk to students about everything from, hey, I've got this hold on my account and I don't know why, to, I'm not sure I like it here at Illinois. I haven't really met anyone. What do I do? To, I received an allegation of a violation of the academic integrity policy, and I'm kind of freaking out. So the range is large. There are a few things that we're more known for, which we can talk about here in a minute. But the bottom line is that students can come to talk to us really, truly about absolutely anything. What I like to say is that we may not be the boss of a ton. We may not be the person who can solve or sort of manage your situation directly. But if we don't know the person or the unit that does, we will find out and get you connected.
And that is such a huge role for students because, and I talk about this on various episodes, and I talk about it in my personal life all the time. I have a daughter who's a freshman at a school, and I talk with her about it all the time, is that most students coming out of high school or going into college from wherever situation they are, they have this idea that this is my path. And when a hiccup happens along that path, there's a feeling of it's all crumbled. It's either all or nothing. Either I'm on the path and I'm doing great, or it's all falling apart and nothing's going to work out. And that's not the case. Hiccups happen. Things come up, and that's a scary moment when it does. It's a scary moment as an adult when something comes up unexpected. But especially when you're a student, when you don't have that life experience, when you haven't figured out ways to navigate those situations, having that assistance through the Student Assistance Center or any other office at ODOS is such a huge asset. And it's available, and just really highly encourage, take advantage of it, because there are people there that want to help in those situations, and if they don't have the answers, are going to help find the answers for whatever that situation is.
Absolutely. And not only that, but let's not kid ourselves. We're at the University of Illinois. We've got a lot of high achieving, talented students who are used to doing stuff maybe on their own. And so if they find something that maybe I can't solve on my own, there can be a sense of, yikes, maybe I'm not as high achieving, maybe I'm not as talented as I thought. And there's nothing further from the truth. Learning how to utilize resources is one of the most important skills I think that anyone can learn. In fact, in one of my graduate programs, that was a competency that we focused on. How do you utilize your resources? And so we're one of those resources for students.
And so I love that you mentioned that you bring a long history of experience from various universities that you've worked with, because that also is an asset for our students. I'll just be flat honest, is an asset because you've seen more than one way to do things. You've seen more than one way for things to happen. You have experience outside of just University of Illinois. Nothing that's wrong with University of Illinois, but you bring outside experience from so many different aspects that it really, students can come in and they can ask, and it's that for a lot of students, it's the first time they face that adversity. At our point in our lives, we've faced a few adversities, and it's, it's never fun. It's never easy, but hey, I can come out on the other side of this and be okay. And so you can share that with the students in order to help them come out the other side of whatever they're facing as well. Sure. Yeah. So let's talk about a couple things specifically from the Student Assistance Center that you do, partly because our campus is brilliant, and I love that, but we're also a campus that is brilliant in a lot of theories, and I'm of the mentality that theories are great until but you need to have some way to, this is how it actually functions. Give an example of, because, we can sit here and say, if you have something that comes up, come talk to us. And they're like, well, what do you mean something that comes up? Well, these are some things that come up. One of the first ones, and this is one that I interact with a lot, where I turn around and direct it to your office a lot, is a student comes to the university, they're working hard, they get a little sick, they miss a little bit of class, and suddenly they decide, you know what, I need a note. from a doctor in order to say, hey, I was sick, I had to miss this class. That's not exactly how it works, because they'll call McKinley and I'll have to tell them, I'm sorry, we don't do that. You need to talk to ODOS. Why do they need to go to ODOS and go to the Student Assistance Center for that kind of information?
Yeah, for sure. And what I might say, first of all, is that here's a little plug for McKinley. Students, when you get sick, seek medical attention. Not only because it'll come in handy when you're looking for an absence letter, but also because we want you to take care of yourself.
Yes.
Number two, and I know sometimes it can be intimidating, maybe with some professors more than others, but the second most important thing students can do when they fall ill or they need to miss class really for any reason is to reach out to your faculty members, alert them to what's going on. But a lot of faculty will direct students to the Office of the Dean of Students, the Student Assistance Center, for an absence letter. And that is something that our office manages. It's for a relatively narrow set of circumstances, including illness. And we do draw a distinction that we're talking about a prolonged illness, something that knocks you out for 3 or more days, that results in kind of being down. Food poisoning for one night that kind of impacts class the next morning isn't necessarily something that's going to get an absence letter. That's just kind of missing 1 day of class. But anything that results in 3 or more missed days. All this information is on our website. It's relatively easy to find. I always direct students to go to the main Illinois website. In the search box, type in the words absence and letter, and it'll get you right to our office. And we ask for students to seek that absence letter once they've returned to class. Especially as it relates to illness. I might be down with bronchitis, and I expect that I'll be back on Thursday. But turns out this thing's hanging on longer than I thought, and I'm actually going to be gone for several more days. If you wait till you get back, we can do one letter that covers the entirety of your absence. So it requires filling out the form. I like to joke there's nothing that we like better at Illinois than a good process. So the process involves filling out a form, providing documentation. Now, if students are seen at McKinley, they don't have to add any documentation. We have an internal process that we use with our friends over here where they can help verify a student's circumstances. But they submit the letter when they're done. They include that document or their request when they're back to class. They include that documentation. We review it and we'll let them know if that letter is approved. And if students ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to talk to us, because we're happy if you're, for whatever reason, ineligible for an absence letter, we'll coach you through how best to communicate with your faculty member.
Another aspect of Student Assistance Center that directly correlates and interacts with McKinley is a medical withdrawal. And I want to bring this one up because there may be students that just aren't even familiar that this is a process that's available. Hopefully, if they're going through something that, and unfortunately, if they're going through something like this, and they've seen McKinley, we're sharing with them that this process is available. But if they go somewhere else, they might not know about it. If it's an emergency room type of situation, even that would be something that would be outside of McKinley, they might not be aware. What is a medical withdrawal, and how does your office interact with that?
Yeah, for sure. So our office took over the administration of the medical withdrawal process roughly 5 or 6 years ago, and so. What I would say is that medical withdrawal is one of 2 pathways to a withdrawal. Students, sometimes for any number of reasons, you might decide, I'm just not up for finishing this semester. Some students do so because of personal reasons. I have family concerns that I need to go back to. Some feel like I just don't want to be here right now. Others have health issues. It is our goal that students prioritize their health and well-being. The hardest thing for us to watch in the Student Assistance Center, and I'm sure for folks at McKinley as well, is to watch a student kind of limp along for the first half or more of a semester, and not consider withdrawal because I'll get off schedule, that says something about me, whatever the case might be, only to get to the very end of the semester and realize either I'm failing all my classes, and now I do need to do a withdrawal, or maybe I still won't do a withdrawal and I end up getting dropped. We really want students to focus on their health and well-being, because if you just kind of limp along, you waste a lot of time, energy, and just money in kind of going through all of these things that aren't going to really allow you to demonstrate who you are, not going to allow you to achieve in the way that you know you can, et cetera, et cetera. So number one, prioritize your health and well-being. If students begin to realize, hey, you know what, my health is impacting my ability to go to class and to do my work, we want students to come and talk to us. I'm not going to get into the weeds about what all the differences are between a withdrawal through the college and a withdrawal through the medical withdrawal process, but the medical withdrawal process is designed to give students time away from campus for a semester or more to really focus on their health, so that when they come back, they are fully well and able to achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. So I know that's still pretty general in nature, but the main goal is come see us, prioritize your health and well-being, and we'll talk to you about exactly what that all means.
Yeah, and again, that's like you said, it's kind of general, but it gives a little bit more of a context to what it is and kind of a context of what you can do and assist with at the Student Assistance Center. Before we pivot to another aspect of ODOS and assistance that students can have, I did want to ask, where is the Student Assistance Center? Somebody's listening, they're like, oh, I need to go talk to somebody. How do they find you?
Very good question. We're in the Turner Student Services building, which is at the corner of 6th and John. So we are there, and folks can come and see us pretty easily. One last thing that I'll say about the medical withdrawal process and prioritizing your health is, students, the sooner you can talk to someone about what you're dealing with, the better. The earlier you come and speak with us, the more options you have. So even if you're not ready to say, I want to withdraw, but you are experiencing challenges, come and talk to us. Because if you come see us in, let's say, February of a spring semester, that's a lot better than coming to us in the last 2 weeks of the semester. In the fall semester, we have a lot of folks who come and see us right after fall break, who we haven't seen all semester, who are sharing, hey, I've been dealing with this health issue for a really long time, and that severely limits the options that are available.
Yeah, it's, reach out, ask questions. There's absolutely no harm in asking and trying to get ahead of something. And so, yeah, strongly encourage that. So the other program I wanted to really focus on in this conversation is the emergency dean, because again, students will hear that, hey, contact the emergency dean. Hey, the emergency dean is available, but they might not know what that means, because is that the dean of my college? Is that, what are we talking about here? But this resource is really important for students to understand and to be aware of, so that if they need to utilize it, they can. What is the emergency dean?
Absolutely. So what I'll say first and foremost is that for many, many years here at Illinois, the Student Assistance Center was known in general as the emergency dean. So students, you're going to see the words emergency dean in some syllabi where they actually mean the Student Assistance Center. So let me just say that. Number two, what I'll share is that the Emergency Dean program is the on-call after-hours program where members of the Office of the Dean of Students have a cell phone, and we are available to students whenever the university is closed. Evenings, weekends, holidays, you name it. We all carry the phone for a couple of weeks each year to be able to respond to students who are experiencing critical incidents that require an immediate university response. Now, students, you might see in your syllabus, if you're going to miss class, call the emergency dean. Let me back that up and say you want to replace emergency dean with Student Assistance Center. Because if you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing I can do about your need to miss class. Your best course of action at that time is to send your professor an email to provide as quick of an update as you can about what's going on with you, and then reach out to our office the next day. Now, if you are in a car wreck and are taken to the emergency room and need to talk about what happens next because you have concerns about your health insurance, you have concerns about class, give us a call that we can help respond to. If you find that your apartment off campus has had a fire, or you've had a flood and now you don't have a place to stay for the night and your landlord may not be as cooperative as you would hope, give us a call. We'll talk to you about what we can do for you to make sure you've got a safe place to stay. So those are a couple of examples of why students would seek the emergency dean.
And that kind of situation with where you're talking about the flood or an issue at an apartment, now all of a sudden, not just are they talking to emergency dean, but that's where you can be like, hey, we have an office of the basic needs, that if somebody has an issue and something unexpected has come up, this office can help out with it. We actually have an episode of the podcast. If you look back a little bit in our archive, we spoke with basic needs. So check that one out too. You'll find a whole lot of information. I don't want to go into it right now because we just did that in another one, but that's how things dovetail together. And that's how the emergency dean can help assist in finding resources. That's why it's so important to contact, because there are things that you know about that students in a moment of crisis are, one, they're not thinking straight anyway because it's a moment of crisis, but they may not be aware of those resources, and that's where you can step in.
Absolutely. I think, bottom line is if students need some assistance before the next business day, give us a call, but also really think about this word emergency. The way we kind of talk about it too is health and safety emergencies. That's what we're really designed to be assisting with in those after hours. Academic emergencies, concerns about, hey, the program I was supposed to log into to submit my paper by midnight crashed. We don't have control over that. We are not going to be able to do anything. So again, communicating with faculty immediately and then contacting the Student Assistance Center for coaching on how to manage that particular issue. That's kind of the difference of things we're talking about when we say emergency.
So we talked about where to find the Student Assistance Center, but if somebody needs to contact them or the emergency dean, what's the contact? What's the method that they get a hold of you for that?
Yep, and it's absolutely up to students what you're most comfortable, friends, with doing in terms of connecting with us. Our email address is helpdean, as in I need some help, helpdean@illinois.edu. Our telephone number, you can always give us a call during business hours at 217-333-0050. And we also have walk-in hours, drop-in hours every day of the week. Those are posted on our website, but folks can always just stop on in and meet with one of our staff members.
With the emergency dean, a question is it purely things that I'm dealing with directly, or can it be issues that I'm struggling with indirectly, like it's happening to a friend of mine or a roommate, and it's a health and safety issue for them, and I'm being affected? Is that something that students could contact the emergency dean for as well?
Sure, absolutely. I think one of the examples I used was of being in a car accident and going to the hospital. If the person who was in an accident is your roommate and they're in serious condition and you're not exactly sure what to do next, how that impacts you, what you should be doing, how you can be of service to the student, you're really emotionally traumatized by what happened and you're not sure if you can handle heading to class the next morning, absolutely give us a call. We can help provide some reassurance, some guidance, and some support in what is undoubtedly a difficult moment.
And that goes back to what we talked about early in the episode, is that if you don't know the answer, you'll find where the answer is. If you're not able to help with a situation, you know people who can, that kind of thing. So it's a lot of just assistance is what it is. I'm assisting you in whatever, and this is how this is impacting you. And this is an emergency situation. It's just got some nuance to it. So we're going to help you navigate through that.
Absolutely.
Well, our episode, we always run out of time at the end. I could always continue the conversations. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and sharing about this, because this is a huge resource for students, and it's a wonderful resource. Hopefully most students don't need this resource, but it's there for what you need if there is an emergency or that unexpected thing happens. And it's something that is so valuable for students to be aware of. So Anne-Marie, thank you so much for coming and talking about it today.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Being at college and going into secondary education is a wonderful time, and most students have a plan, they have an idea, and they go through it, and hopefully those plans work just as expected, but sometimes they don't, and things, unexpected circumstances come and things pop up, and that's where the Office of Dean of Students and the Student Assistance Center are so important. And it's so important for students to be aware of what's going on and what their resources are and what their options are. And so if you're listening to this and you have questions, if you even if you don't have a situation going on per se in this moment, if you have a question or you're uncertain or you just want to know more about what the resources are, please reach out to ODOS, reach out to the Student Assistance Center, ask them what they can do, be proactive, because then you have a better idea. If something does come up, you have your options in front of you. If you want to contact us here at McKinley or at Healthy Illini and ask, we'll be happy to put you in contact with the people that can answer the questions for you. We'll be happy to assist you in that as well and figure out what the options are and what your path is and all those sorts of things. So just really, it starts with just reaching out, being proactive, making contact and asking those questions, having the conversations, and those will be the tools that you have if something does come up unexpectedly in your life. But thank you for joining us today. You're on a personal journey no matter where you are in it. You are important and you matter. Your health and wellness are important and matter, and we're here to keep you well to excel. So go have a great week, Illini. Let us know how you're doing, and we'll catch you next time on Healthy Illini.